then we'll be talking about cyber crime, cyber security, and all about, your internet browsing activities. But first, we start with our newspaper review. I am not alone. We're joined by Mr. Ochieng Clinton there. He's not new to our studios, and today we have Brian Kiama. Gentlemen, welcome to our studios.
Thank you.
Let's right away start with the Daily Nation. We have the splash there saying, "Will deliver leak-proof exam," pledges Magoha. Now, ahead of the start of this year's KCPE and KCSE examinations, the government says it will mobilize 180,000 teachers and police helicopters to monitor the test and curb cheating. And we know that ever since Magoha came into, the Education Ministry, cheating has quite reduced. And the story goes on to page 5, and he talks about, how he's not going to also allow teachers that were actually suspected to have contributed in cheating not to contribute into the investigations, or rather the assessment of exams this year. But he does pledge that it will be a leak-proof exam. Do you believe that, Mr. Ochieng?
Thank you. I do think that delivering a leak-proof examination is always very hard, because there is a time where the teachers collude with the examination officers so that they can get the exams as had been happening in the previous session. And also we are told that the CS Matiang'i, the CS Magoha also said that a case in Migori where the teachers colluded with some of the examination officers and have been sent away for the same. I do think, and I also want to acknowledge Magoha for this step, because it is a good step forward. Let our students come out of the schools with the things that the correct grade that they're supposed to come out with. Because in the previous years, for example, in 2015, you could get somebody getting an A and going to the university taking medicine. Then after 1 year, then he transfers to another course again, just because of the grade is not his or hers. I think this is a good step towards the right direction.
Mr. Brian, do you think that in Kenya there can be a leak-proof examination session, KCSE and KCPE, as Magoha promises?
First of all, let me say, thank you for having me this morning. My contribution about that is, yes, there can be a leak-proof exam, but that is, of course, for example, we look at CS Matiang'i when he was holding the docket of education. He actually demonstrated that leak-proof exams can be done. Then we came to the reign of Amina Mohammed. She also continued with the same spirit, but now CS Magoha has not been tried on the same docket of education in regards to providing leak-proof exams. No, I would say that the ball is in his court, and Kenyans are waiting to see how he will be able to continue with the good work CS Matiang'i left, and if truly he's up to keeping his word about delivering leak-proof exams, then Kenyans will be more than glad. Yes.
Yeah. If we continue with the standard there, it's very interesting. It says the curse of handshake, and the story goes on to say, State of the Nation, the deal between Uhuru and Raila numbed political tensions, but has turned into a juggernaut that is blind to shrinking economy, rising debt, unemployment, and corruption. Yesterday's critics are today's cheerleaders, turning Parliament into a Pentecostal echo chamber. Who will speak for Kenyans? And the story continues on pages 6, 7, and 8 of the Standard newspaper, and it goes on to say that the handshake has actually brought a blur into the political lines, and MPs are actually scared to actually be on the opposite side of either of the political the leaders rather. So do you think the handshake has actually brought a blur into political lines in the country, Mr. Ochieng?
The handshake brought so many things, I think, into question, because while the previous minister, the prime minister, I think, said that he was being sworn in as the president, and the country was going to have at least 2 presidents. That's something that is not even provided in the constitution. Wisdom played a major role by Uhuru Kenyatta, the president, not taking him into the courts and everything. But again, the handshake brought so many, and it reduced political tensions because of things that we saw in 2007 2011 and 2013 or rather. And again, it also brought some, we always thought that after having a handshake, then we can have a smooth running economy, and as unemployment rates being reduced and everything. But it has not been the same, because since the handshake, we always know that the opposition party is always to keep the party in parliament in check. But now if the opposition party comes, they collude with the party that is ruling, then we don't have somebody to keep the ruling party in check. So that if even, for example, if we have unemployment, if the opposition party is noticing that we have unemployment and they are in one table drinking tea and everything on a daily basis, then we don't have, we are not going into the right direction, because if on a daily basis we are crying of unemployment and poor health and sanitation and everything, but it is not being checked. So I think handshake, it has played a major role in bringing us down to some extent, because for now you can, since handshake, we've had Ministry of Health problems, we've also had several ministries problems. I think the handshake as it is, we should have somebody who can stand out, because it is also asking who will talk for the Kenyan. It is the common mwananchi who is a Kenyan, and the person who the president or the prime minister is a subject to. But if they don't deliver back to you who took them to the position, I think it is a very bad idea.
But you see, according to the handshake, it said that it brought the two political rivals, if I can use that word, together so that it can foster peace in the country. But that doesn't mean that the opposition is actually against the citizens. Do you agree?
On my side, I can say that the handshake has brought both positive and negative effects to the country. When I look at the positive effects, you are witness that one of the main hindrances to development in a country is political instability.
Yes.
If you can remember, during the 2017-2018, just after the elections, we used to have what they used to call the mass action every Monday here in town. And you can remember, if you are operating a kiosk, it was going to be demolished. If you are going to work, some people would just show up and stone you. Then all of a sudden, there comes the handshake. So on the negative effects, now the opposition chief, Raila Odinga, is now in government, meaning that he, as the chief, what do we call it? The person who looks, who oversights the government.
A watchdog.
Exactly, is now in government. So the government has nobody to question its doings. So you find that things like corruption, nobody is oversighting them. Things like, especially something like the SGR, nobody is saying that this and this thing was done wrongly, just because the people who are supposed to oversight that thing, they are now in government. They have become friends of the government. So we have no oversight role. Just in parliament. It is only in parliament where we have the oversight role. Yeah, that is one of the negative
Yes, Mr. Ochieng.
I always say that it is wise to have the opposition leader, so that things can go into the right direction. But if you are, you know that if you are a politician or anybody in a leadership position, and you go and connect with the leaders who are in the ruling, there are some things that you are not supposed to do. You cannot talk ill of the ruling party, yet you are a member of the ruling party. So definitely, if things are happening on the wrong way, you will definitely not give out position, your opinions, and lead the
And according to the story here, it's very interesting that they're noting out that there's increased debt in the country, and levies have actually increased for the citizens. How do you think the handshake has affected increase of debt and levies?
On increase of debt, I think the last time we were speaking here, where Kenya, we were the Japanese government was going to loan Kenya 88 billion shillings for the building of the bridge in Likoni. And you saw that the money that was going to be used on that place was 48 million. Where 48 billion? Where is the other 42 billion going to? So we don't have somebody to come to rise up and say that we are supposed to be getting 48 billion, not as opposed to 88 billion, because we are going to take more and use less. And where is the other money going to? Just as we usually usually said again, the other time that we took money from China, and 10 million US dollars was used for wireless transfer. That I'm always against it, because you cannot use, if using wireless transfer, you only use 5 MBs, and now you want to prove to us that 10 million is being used to buy 10 MBs, something that is not it is very not logical. So I think as it is for now, we are going into debt, and for now we always said that our grandchildren are even in debt. What if we are always asking for loans and grants and everything, and we are always getting the money and not repaying? We are going to be left, even the grandchildren of our grandchildren will be still in debt, and yet they have not been born. What if the world could end today? Then we could, if we are supposed to go to heaven or hell, then we will go as debtors.
Definitely, it's a hot debate down here. Quite funny at the same time. Remember, you can join in the discussion on our social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Horizontv Kenya. We're taking a short break. Do not touch that dial.
Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban. You are watching the Sabah Show. Keep it locked right here on Horizon TV.
Do not touch that dial.
Abu Najma with kids. We learn Quran. We learn Quran. We learn Quran. We learn Quran. We learn Hadith. We learn Hadith. We learn Hadith. We learn Hadith. We learn the duas. We learn the duas. We learn the duas. We learn the duas. We love a prophet. We love a prophet. We love a prophet. We love a prophet. Abu Najma with kids. Abu Najma with kids. We learn Quran. We learn Quran. We learn Quran. We learn Quran. We learn Hadith.
Wanashitati nashta, watakaowafisha nyinyi ni malaika wa mauti.
Ishara zetu zinazotuongoza.
Ndipo hata Mwenyezi Mungu Subhanahu wa Ta'ala katika Qur'ani,
pokea ufahamu,
asema
na tahadhari,
la yanju min dhaqtati al-qabri salihun wala talihun,
yazingatie,
haokoki na kufinywa na kaburi yoyote.
Jiunge na Sheikh Ali Bahero katika Ishara Zetu kila Jumanne saa 2 usiku kwenye Horizon TV.
Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban. You are watching the Sabah Show. Keep it locked right here on Horizon TV.
Yes, welcome back. We are watching the Sabah Show Tech Tuesday this morning with Mariam Mwacharo standing in for Mr. Yusuf Farah as usual. Today is all about technology, as I've told you earlier. We're going to be taking a look at cybersecurity awareness later. But right now, this is the second segment of our newspaper review. I have with me Mr. Ochieng Clinton and Mr. Brian Kiama. As we continue with our newspaper review, tuangalie gazeti la Taifa Leo. Na habari pale inayopewa kipaumbele na inayotangulia gazeti la Taifa Leo ni kwamba Atuoli achemsha tangatanga. Na habari hiyo inasema wandani wa naibu rais Dr. William Ruto kutoka kusini mwa bonde la Ufa sasa wanataka katibu mkuu wa muungano wa vyama vya wafanyikazi KOTU Bwana Francis Atuoli akamatwe kwa madai kwamba naibu rais Ruto hatakuwa debeni mwaka wa 2022. So KOTU wants Francis Atuoli to actually be arrested for claiming that the deputy president is actually not going to be at the debe on 2022. If I may ask ask you, Brian, do you think this is the right time to actually concentrate on such politics?
Not at all. Francis Atwoli, first of all, he is a leader of a trade union. I don't see where, in all senses, where he's being involved in politics. Number one, if you claim that Deputy President will not be at the ballot come 2022, what are you trying to tell Kenyans? Are you trying to tell Kenyans that you know what will happen to him? Maybe he will not see 2022, or what exactly? I need him to explain further. What do you mean that the Deputy President will not be in the ballot? Because at the moment, I'm very sure that Deputy President is aiming to be at the ballot. So when you say he will not be, then what are you trying to insinuate? Do you mean he's going to be dead? I don't see where. What are you
Yes,
trying
Mr.
to say?
Ochieng, what is your 2 cents on that story?
I don't agree with my friend here, Brian, because we always say that politics is like a game, and you have to be very wise so that you can play the game. By Francis Atwoli saying that the Deputy President, the Honorable Ruto, will not be into the debate, it's just is like playing the candidate. You are just saying something so that, in fact, because it is politics and you are a leader, you have to be in the limelight. So you have to, it is once or twice you always have to speak, but you don't know if you speak again, if you speak and then you say something that was not intended. We cannot crucify you because of saying something that was not intended. There is always a slip of the tongue, and again, I think what Atwoli is trying to, because it is said in Kiswahili, achemsha tanga tanga, it's just like playing the persons, he's playing the people who are in tanga tanga team. It's just mind-boggling them such that if it reaches 2022, we can see on how the politics plays again. And again, when I think the last time I said that we are in 2019. Kenya, as we go to politics, when we usually go for elections, it takes us 2 years to come back to our senses. And now it is the 3rd year, which is when just we've realized our senses. And now we are also involving ourselves in 2022 election. I think let the time reach and let us be involved in the politics as it will come, not now.
Mr. Brian, let me bring your attention to another story here on the Star. On pages 2 there, it says families receive remains of Boeing crash victims. And actually, when I was going through the paper this morning, it's actually something that probably we should celebrate, according to my opinion, because it says that the government actually really supported the family members of the crash, and that they've brought the remains and they're actually getting ready, you know, to settle them. But settlement obviously says that it's going to take a long time, and that is not something very new in the country. But don't you think this is something that should be celebrated, that for the first time the government has actually helped Kenyans, you know, to come to terms to a particular tragedy? And it says that Transport Secretary General, Cabinet Secretary rather, James Macharia, says it is high time that the aviation industry puts stringent measures in place to ensure security and safety of all passengers. And he said that measures should be extended to aircraft manufacturers so that they do not take anything to chance. If you remember, the craft actually it crashed just 6 minutes after takeoff, and that's because the aircraft was actually used for longer. What do you think are some of the measures that, you know, can be taken to ensure safety of our passengers who fly to other countries?
First of all, it is very unfortunate. I would like to say a word of condolence, first of all, to all the affected families. And let me say that Boeing, it was the right thing for Kenyans, or rather the advocates or the lawyers who are representing the Kenyan families who are affected in that crash, to at least to sue the company, the Boeing company, for putting first of all profit before safety. That is true. But if we are having such things that they are coming up, at least to give remedy to the affected families, just because it happened, and there's nothing we can do about it. At least it's a good move, and they should be compensated, and they should be compensated sufficiently. Yeah.
Mr. Ochieng, what do you think are some of the measures that our transport industry can actually put forth? Because as you can see, as I've told you, the aircraft came down because it was used for a period longer than it's supposed to be used. What are some of the measures that you think can be stringent enough to ascertain that our passengers are safe?
So far, I think the persons who are involved in the manufacturing of the aeroplanes, as we are going to buy, it is just as the same as going to buy a car. And you go and if you are going to buy a car, you always check on the manufacturer's report what has been done and what has not been done. I think as a country, we should put some regulations like if, for example, the aeroplane has been used for more than it is supposed to be used because the time has reached, let it be put somewhere aside and let the others that are coming into position, the new ones that are coming into market to be used. Because if you use something that has, according to the manufacturer's report, it should not be used. It's like going to buy a bread that has mold because it has expired again. It has expired and you are going to buy something that you know is very dangerous to your health. So I think there are some regulations and even a more stringent and regulations that should be put into place because on the human lives, I think that is the most sacred thing apart from any other thing that we have in the world.
Yes, excuse me. Holding on to, rather heading on to other good news is that a speed governor invented by University Nairobi student there on page 3 of the Star has been approved by authorities to compete with devices in China. Now it slows down vehicle automatically according to speed limits set by the National Transport and Safety Authority, and it goes on to say that the speed governor that has actually been invented by this particular student, it can actually sense when a bump is ahead and it slows down, you know, the speed of the car, and you cannot tamper with it. It can actually be investigated if you can tamper it, and I think this is a good move rather, and we should actually support some of our inventors in Kenya. We are actually hailed for our talents, don't you think so, Bwana Brian?
It's a good idea. Congratulations to the gentleman. I think he deserves a good reward for that. The problem with Kenya is that such things are put into dustbins and nobody appreciates. Actually, they take advantage of it and claim to be their own, which is very unfortunate. Such a gentleman should be now somewhere very in a very.
But it actually says that he's set to file for a patent to protect the algorithm believed to be the first such by a Kenyan.
Patenting would be the best idea to do about it. But now the problem is, I still insist that we are in Kenya and we will know what happens in Kenya. After a short while, you will hear rumors and it will come to be good news, true news that such a patent was revoked. And they start claiming that no procedure was followed to patent that item. And,
you think we should celebrate, or we should actually put this down and actually hail the story? But it actually says that he's
kudos to the person who has invented, and I think he should come into close contact with the great minds in Jomo Kenyatta such that we can see on how that thing is continuing. And again, on patenting, I think it should be first patented because in Kenya, before it is put into test, because it can be put into test, then there is a person, because you know we Kenyans, we are very innovative, and somebody, if you put that into test, then somebody will go and check on how the system works and then goes and makes another one. So I think before it is put into test, it should be patented. And on the issues of revoking something that has been patented, I don't know how we are continuing as Kenyans. Let us do things in the right direction and the right way, because if somebody patents something, an idea that he's come up with, it is like, because I'm a scientist, it is like science. You always write a report or even publish a report, a scientific report that cannot be revoked, since if it is a scientific report that you used the right direction and the right procedures to publish it, it cannot be revoked. But in this case, in Kenya, we always see things, good people coming up with good ideas, but they are never used. I think this one should be patented and should be used as opposed to those ones coming from the China or any other country.
Yeah, definitely. Let's take a look at, excuse me, pages 10 there. There's another interesting story, and it says TSC bans teachers involved in cheating from managing exams. And it goes on to say that TSC has banned teachers involved in previous cases of examination cheating from administering this year's KCPE and KCSE. And some of the things Education Cabinet Secretary there, George Magoha, yesterday actually gave examples of Northern Kenya and Migori as hotspots where such collusion led to exam leakage and cancellation, and that's the collusion between schools and examination officials to cheat soon after collecting the papers from safety containers. It goes on to say that KCPE will take place, definitely we know, between 29th October, and that's like I think in 2 weeks time. My question is, if teachers were actually found to be involved in cheating cases maybe last year, Cabinet Secretary says here that action was taken and most of them have been punished. But you know, once somebody has actually done a mistake, they can actually repent, they can change. Do you think maybe they can be given another chance to actually stand in for the exams this year?
Okay, I can say that we have a lot of teachers in Kenya. Many of them are jobless. So it happens and it follows the suit. For example, we have public servants who are involved in corruption. The High Court ruling was that these people should vacate office until investigations are done and completed. So the same case should happen to teachers. If you are found that you are not respecting the integrity of our exam system, you should stay aside. At least you give room for others to prove their capability, at least to demonstrate that indeed integrity in our exam system can be maintained. So I think there is no room for repentance. Once this is not a church.
Mr. Cheng, you think there is no room for repentance?
There is always a room for repentance, as it is always. But you see, in the statement it is said that most of the teachers who are involved in those cheating have been banned. But again, most of them, but
yes,
some of them are still in office. Those some who are still in office can bring up other teachers to be like them.
Yes.
So which means that we are still going to have an examination that is not as light as it is supposed to be. So I think there is a room for repentance, yes, because you can come and most often people blame the devil. However, the devil is not around because you say that it is the work of the devil. The devil was not around while you are doing the thing. So I think if some can be given chance, but because if you give them chance again, they can do the same. And we have unemployment rate is very high in Kenya because we have several students who have graduated with to be teachers, but they have not found a place. Some still working in the private sector and what have you. I think if it is banning, let them ban everybody who was involved in examination cheating, such that we can have a clear way that we are going to do our examinations this year.
And with that comment, we definitely head on to our second break there. We're going to take a short break. Remember, you can join in the discussion on our social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Horizontv Kenya. And if I take a look here at my Facebook, there's somebody actually who sent a comment, George Simon there. He says, huyo mtu mwenye ametengeneza speed governor akuwe makini sana kwa sababu Kenya tunajua kutengeneza vitu imbo. Okay. I think it was a comment towards that. Isikue kama ile story ya mtu mwenye ameinvent M-Pesa. That is what he says, and that is his comment. Keep on sending your comments on our social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Horizontv Kenya. We're taking rather a short break. We'll be right back at Horizontv Kenya.
Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban. You are watching the Sabah Show. Keep it locked right here on Horizon TV.
Wake up to exciting mornings every day. Active Jumatatu with Muhammad Obura. Tech Tuesday with Yusuf Farah. Wednesday, the special edition Business Chat with Ibtisam Jamal. All about your health on Healthy Thursdays with Mariam Mwacharo. Aisha Khan with thorny pertinent issues every Friday on the Round Table. Fresh discussions, direct probe in Sabah Show, only on Horizon TV.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban. You are watching the Sabah Show. Keep it locked right here on Horizon TV.
Every Friday,
welcome back. You're watching the Sabah Show, today being Tech Tuesday. This is Mariam Mwacharo standing in for our very own Yusuf Farah. You're watching the newspaper review. Later on will be Matters Technology. Now let's head on to the Standard, page 6 there. There's a very interesting story, from banks to farms, economy bleeding jobs. And it goes on to say the US government has slashed funding for the fight against HIV in Kenya, which has brought with it massive layoffs that are complicating an already precarious unemployment situation. Now it says through the president's emergency plan for AIDS, the US has been spending an estimated 120 billion a year and employs an estimated 6,000 people to tackle the epidemic. And then Partners of Health and Development in Africa, an agency working with high-risk population groups such as sex workers, has also ended several programs as funding taps dry. Now the PHDA alone sent 40 workers home. In short, the story says that workers are being laid off, but also it's very interesting that they are pulling out funds for HIV, yes, but they according to the story, it says that Kenya is now a middle-income earning country. It should be able to sustain itself. I think we should take that challenge. Don't you think so, Brian?
Yes, we should, but just imagine the position we were at when HIV was still a national disaster, of which it is. We never used to have free medicines like ARVs. We never used to have free testing in our public and also private hospitals. So I don't think it is the best opinion or the best thing to do, just to cut off the funds which are they should be used to cater for HIV and AIDS, because Kenyans will suffer. Because HIV and AIDS, actually at this time, 2019, it is spreading so fast among the teenagers. So I think they should continue.
Mr. Ocheng, do you maybe feel that you should maybe concur with this, or do you support this move? I think Kenya is in a position right now to actually sustain itself and take care of its own needs. You know, there's now self-test kits that are being sent, technology is improving, and HIV is no longer a threat. I think Kenya should take the challenge. Don't you think so?
Yes, I think Kenya should take the challenge, because as we see, as the United States have just stated, we are a middle-earning country. But again, you see that our system has been corrupted so much, because we have a lot of corruption, and this is why some farms can cut off the money they are sending to Kenya, because those monies that are being supposed to be used for the correct, because for example, if you have somebody sending you a loan to be used, for example, in an HIV testing procedure, and then most of the money that has been sent goes to somebody's pocket, then the country will feel that like we should then cut off this, so that we don't incur more losses than it is supposed to be. And again, on the spread of HIV/AIDS, it is very fast, as we know, because as I was in Kisumu, was attached at an hospital. You see that the viral load for a place like Kisumu, Lumumba Hospital, first on the station is holding about 6,000 or 7,000 persons who are infected with HIV and AIDS. But again, we know that HIV and AIDS, the strains are really changing very fast. It is like we have the antiseptics and everything that changes very fast. So when we have HIV and AIDS, you can be in stage 1, where we have the drugs giving you, we call them stage 1 drugs, and then we have the 1 up to 11.
Yes.
So what if you have 11 and then it has been cut off and now you cannot receive the ARVs? I think it is a good move, but let the country also make sure that the health of the persons is catered for, because you cannot live if you don't have things like drugs and any other thing again.
Yes, but I also think it is a good thing. I'll come back to you so that you can put a point on that. It is a good thing that now ARVs, have been for free for everybody. You can actually walk into a hospital and have yourself, there's a self-test kit that you can do back at home. You come to a hospital and you receive drugs. You wanted to add a point into the story? Yes.
As much as Article 43 of the Constitution provides that the right to health is a right that is supposed to be within the system, I think the right to health as it is provided, it is a progressive right which cannot be achieved at once, at a go. Currently, the Kenyan health system is crying. There is danger because the budget, the health budget in Kenya is not enough. We have hospitals level 4, level 5, and level 6 which are suffering. So just imagine if the expenditure for which is supposed to cater for HIV is cut off. What will happen? Because there is no enough money in Kenya because we are funded by outside countries to cater for HIV. If Kenya decides to take up the task to treat HIV or to manage HIV, what will happen? Other resources which are supposed to go to other dockets or maybe to strengthen the health docket will be minimal. They will be scarce.
But at the same time, you know, this brings me to the remindation that there's a saying, common Swahili saying that abebwae hujishika. You know, when somebody carries you, then you also hold yourself so that you don't fall down. And I think that's what the US government is trying to tell Kenya right now. Heading on to page 9, a rather sad story. You spoke about hospitals right now. And it goes on to say, shame of hospitals with no toilets and water. Researchers measured facilities' performance against 67 good hospital hygiene practices. Now, many of the public hospitals that received the 38 billion leased medical equipment lack toilets or drinking water. A study in 14 top county hospitals shows many do not have adequate toilets like piped water and lack storage for safe drinking water, hence putting the lives of patients and workers at risk. And we have seen our doctors going on strike. Most of them, we've seen them going on strike because of the environments that they're working in. There is no disposable places to dispose this, medical waste, and they're always complaining about the environment. And some of the doctors have actually said that they've been exposed to environments that actually put them at risk of, getting infections and diseases. What do you think the government should look at into this matter, Mr. Ochieng, if I may ask you?
Just as some time back we were looking at the schools when we had a tragedy in Dagoretti. And I said that according to the government, a school, for example, a school of 800 pupils or 800 students should have at least 30 toilets. That is a school setup which should have at least 30 toilets. And then you are in an hospital. We should, because I know in Kenya things like health has been monetized, because now everybody, like cancer, it is only, people only think of money, because if you go to an hospital for a checkup and you're told that you are in stage 1, what you think is to go and get some mchango at home and then come back to be treated. But again, when we have when you go to the hospitals, you'll see that we have the private wards and public wards. Most probably the private wards will be having adequate toilets, and then the public wards have been left such that we don't have adequate toilets. And our hospital is, in fact, the first place that we should have health sanitation as per the constitution gives it out. Because in an hospital you can get nosocomial infections. Those are infections that you can get from the hospital. When somebody, for example, somebody vomits, and again we can have the transfer of the diseases very fast in an hospital, and the reservoirs of the diseases are very many in an hospital. So I think in this case now we cannot say that we don't blame even the Ministry of Health or even the hospital itself. Let the government tell us what is happening, because if we start gambling with people's lives again, as we used to say, we better gamble with other things rather than gambling with person's life, because life is as sacred as it is. We cannot say that now because we don't have toilets in an hospital, then for a short time you'll hear that we don't, because we don't have toilets and we don't have water. For a short time you'll now hear that we don't have drugs, and then what will be the work of an hospital if we don't have drugs, we don't have water, and we don't have toilets? Then people will think that now we should go to witchcrafts as opposed to going to the hospital, because you don't get help from where you are supposed to get help.
Yes, and I remember there was a time that actually there was a story that was covered in one of the dailies, and it says that actually witch doctors here in Kenya want to be given space in hospitals. Let me pull your attention to one of the stories here on the Daily Nation on pages 11. It says alarm of a rise in pending sexual abuse cases, and this same story has been covered in one of the dailies. It goes on to say that over 200 defilement and rape cases at Makindu Courthouse have been piling up since 2014. Hundreds of sexual abuse cases remain unresolved at the Makindu Law Courts in Makueni County. Now, yesterday, 3 visiting magistrates joined their colleagues at the courthouse in an unprecedented move to deal with the backlog of the cases which have been on the rise for the past 5 years. And on the second daily, this same story has been covered. It says that these sexual abusers, they get jailed for a couple of months and they get released. My question to you, Mr. Brian, is what do you think is the best punishment that sexual abusers or offenders should actually be given in the country?
I give reference to the Sexual Offences Act, which states and which actually defines what is defilement and what is rape. Sex with a minor, that is any person below the age of majority, that is the age of 18, is defilement, and the punishment for defilement is actually life imprisonment. The same case to rape, that is in accordance to the circumstances of the case. That is, if we have piling cases of rape and defilement, it is very unfortunate because we are living in a country where people are being sexually abused for little favors, and especially in the job market and other things. We have people being sexually defiled or sexually abused for small things, and you find that these cases, are not being given the attention that they should get.
Yes.
And it is very unfortunate when you have to demoralize somebody so that they can get 1 or 2 things. It is very unfortunate.
Yes.
And I want to call upon the CJ, David Maraga. We need to revisit the justice system, especially when it comes to cases which are of public interest, especially the cases which involve children and also young people.
Yes.
Thank you.
And if I can read a comment here on my Facebook that has just arrived, there's Munira Muad. She says, I think sex offenders should actually be more punished than they are. Jailing them for the whole year will not bring back the honor of the person whom they have taken the dignity from. I think that is what she meant. And she goes on to say that apart from kufungwa hawa watu, they should be castrated and taken to the fields to plant the tea, kwa sababu hata tuna mashida kwenye shamba zetu za chai, so hawa watu wakwe castrated and they become slaves for the rest of their lives. Okay, that is a comment from one of our viewers on Facebook, Mr. Ochieng.
Men.
Yes,
even men are being assaulted and
she
abused.
Did. I don't think.
Yeah.
Okay, very quickly, let me bring your attention to a rather better story here. KDF Day, gallant soldiers honored for commendable work for the nation. And Mr. Ochieng, if I can ask you, I think Kenya, don't you think that Kenya is actually making strides in actually honoring the people who keep our borders safe? And it also goes on to say the ceremony also saw Francis Onyiso, one of the country's uncelebrated football legends, finally honored. Just the other day, the dailies were covering news that our football players in the country are barely recognized. Don't you think this is actually a good move? Very quickly.
In fact, the best move as far it is for now, because celebrating those people who are those who ensures that you sleep how you sleep, because when you go to sleep you don't have Al-Shabaab running here and there and bombing every place anyhow. I think those people, honoring them is the best thing that could be done to them, because for example, if you see even in a primary school, while you performed very well and the students were clapping for you, you feel very good and you can even go on by participating and carried. So I think honoring them will also be giving them some motivation to do their work as they are going to do, because we are told that there is a sergeant who, as the Al-Shabaab attacked, as he stood up and was firing alone against the Al-Shabaab. That is, we should actually honor the person.
Yes, thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm definitely told that we are out of time for the newspaper review. Thank you very much for actually gracing our show, Mr. Ochieng and Mr. Brian there. Definitely you can join our discussion on our social media platforms. Remember, you're watching the Sabah Show today, being Tech Tuesday, with me, Mariam Wacharo, standing in for our very own Yusuf Farah. See you on the next segment of this show as we come to Matters Technology. Do not go anywhere.
Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban. You are watching the Sabah Show. Keep it locked right here on Horizon TV.